Right before this video starts, I would like to put a trigger warning. We do talk about some pretty heavy topics in this video. If you're not here to hear about anything, too heavy, if you're here for a good time, this is probably not your video. And yeah, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Um, Sorry for the inconsistent uploads. I've been pretty sick, so been pretty pretty sick. Sorry for the inconsistent uploads. It will improve. I am starting to feel better, thanks to the grace of God, obviously. And today we are gonna bring back, well, I guess, make a part two to the real life stories. If you guys didn't watch the first video, highly recommend. But basically, this whole series is just going to be me reading stories out of this book that are real life stories. They're not in particular any sort of topic. They're just kind of mixed in. They're all just different kind of stories. Obviously, like the trigger warning said in the beginning of the video, pretty heavy topics. So if you struggle with that, this is the second warning. All right, we're gonna get right into it. This one is, the title is, I felt I had no purpose in life. I was the minority most times and was picked on, and I was 16 and suicidal. As a child, I had a hard time placing myself in this world. I was born in South Korea as a result of interracial marriage, African American / Korean. This was frowned upon at the time. My mother had a tough decision to make: listen to her family and give me up for adoption, or get an abortion. She chose neither and thought that having me would save her marriage. When my father learned I was a girl, he decided to leave. Taking my older sister with him, they left my life. My mom remarried. Life was great until I was no longer an only child. Once my half-siblings came along, my stepfather began verbally abusing me. I was made to feel alone and constantly reminded what my fate would have been if I didn't come to America. Usually, children like me were sold in a sex trade, adopted, or aborted. Depression began to set in. As soon as I felt I had no purpose in life, school was hard because I was the, in quotations, minority most times and was picked on because I looked different. I got into many fights until high school, and I had many failed attempts at looking for my biological father and sister. I was still trying to get answers about who I was and why I started to give up on my life. My home became dysfunctional. My stepdad was an alcoholic, and my mom was never home because of church. I was sheltered, looking after my siblings instead of doing what normal kids do in their childhood. I became rebellious in high school. This led to many arguments with my parents and sometimes even physical fights with my stepdad and siblings. I was tired of being treated like a black sheep. At this point, I was 16 and suicidal. I turned what I thought was, in quotations, love with relationships. I turned to what I thought was love in relationships. When you grow up lacking confidence in yourself, not loving yourself, and not knowing who you are, it leads to unwise decisions. I was pressured into losing my innocence to an older guy. This put me in a state of regret and shame. I realized that wanting to be loved was becoming becoming confused with lust. It was a device that I ended up using in temporary relief that fills the void in my heart. Where was God in all of this, you may ask? I knew God when I was 6, but distanced myself as I grew up. The truth is, God was always there. He protected my life when I overdosed on prescriptions from the medicine cabinet. He strengthened me the day a guy tried to rape me. He kept me out of trouble when I affiliated myself with gangsters and drug dealers for boyfriends. He saved me on many occasions. I remember a boy in middle school pulling out a knife on me because I would not submit to his request to expose my body to him. I remember another time in high school when my friend and I went to her boyfriend's house. He had a, in quotations, friend for me, and I was not interested. His friend tried to force himself on me, which made me leave. As I was approaching the stairs, my friend's boyfriend greeted me with a gun pointing towards me. He told me to get back downstairs with his friend and that I was to do everything that he told me. God gave me boldness to leave anyhow. I was shaken emotionally but unharmed physically. God had always been there waiting at the door, but I was too consumed with life to open it. He wants you to acknowledge him in your life. When you do, you have love, peace, and authority over your circumstances. I finally opened that door. I am joyous to say that I am not the person that I am anymore, or the same person anymore. Depression, suicide, emptiness, loneliness, and regret no longer dwell in my life. The comfort I have now is beyond description, beyond this world. He is the comfort I have. The comfort I have now is beyond description, beyond this world. He is the reason I no longer have the desire for the old things I used to. Acknowledge God in your life, and He will make every crooked path a straight one for you. He will put you in a new direction and give you the strength and protection. It starts with accepting Jesus into your heart. Jesus died on the cross a long time ago, so you would not have to be condemned to eternal suffering, but you would have an eternal life beyond this world. Please know that love in this world has conditions, but God is the only one who has an unconditional love for you. You will begin to see yourselves as He sees you, a beautiful creation in His image, designed with purpose. God is knocking at the door. Will you answer it? And that story is by Denise. What a fucking wild story. It's very sad. Obviously, I can't relate to that. But I do know people that sort of relate to that, and obviously fuck them up a lot. You know, being bullied is not a fun thing. Nobody likes to be fucking bullied. But it is from Tabitha. What a crazy name. I was angry all the time. I played church and I pretended to be a Christian. I wouldn't pick up my Bible until I attended church once a week. I wanted both God and the world, but I did not want to change my ways. I wanted material things. I thought I needed those things to make me happy. I thought if I followed God, I would lose my self-worth. I couldn't let that happen. I went to church as a young girl, but God wasn't my reasoning for going. Church has always made me feel good about myself. It was something my parents made me do, or took me to. I had a hard time trusting both man and God and believing that I could be loved again. I used to attend Pure Gospel Ministry Church on something something in Chicago. I never committed my life fully to Christ. I used to have sex outside of marriage and looked good on the outside. I wanted to hurt men the same way they hurt me. My heart was cold and callous. I was very bitter and upset all the time. I would hurt people first before they got the chance to hurt me. My heart and soul was totally damaged. I was angry with God for allowing me to be date raped in 1996. I would not allow myself to heal from that horrible ordeal. I was dying inside and was angry all the time. I treated my dad the same way I treated God. I only called him when I needed him to fix my problems. I would keep my family and friends at a distance, and I wouldn't let them know how much I was hurting. When I moved to New Jersey, God began to heal my heart. I would come home and cry to God, asking Him for His help. I started going to rape counseling, seeking out His help, and began healing. I started seeking Him totally. I started seeking a relationship with Christ. I joined the Dallas-Fort Worth Church in 1998 and became got sidetracked. I joined the Dallas-Fort Worth Church in 1998 and became a disciple of God. God transformed me into a woman who learned how to surrender to His plans for my life. I had to learn what His plan was for my life. I started reading my Bible daily and relying on Him in every area in my life. I focused on Him more than myself. I had to forgive my rapist and accept God's mercy and love for my life. I learned to accept His forgiveness for my sins, and I also learned to stop blaming God for what happened to me. He transformed me into a spiritual and blessed woman of God. And that story is by Tabitha, like I said. Obviously, this is a very, Christian book. All these end in people talking about how they found God. And I definitely know a lot of people that do that exact same thing. Or not that exact same thing, but they say that they're religious, but they don't really go to church, which I don't think you're going to be judged if you don't go to church every single Sunday for the rest of your life, but, they do horrible things and then they just pray. It's just going to, You know, like it's just like a cycle. They do horrible things, and they're like, "Oh, it's all right. He'll forgive me because I can just ask him for forgiveness." You know, because he died for my sins. But like, you should be looking at it like that. But I'm getting sidetracked. All right. This is the last story. So this one is by Dorothy. I was alive but not living. All right. Last story by Dorothy. I was alive but not living. I was alive but not living. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I never felt love from my mother or my father, and my father was not my life. I thought men loved me, but evidently not enough to marry me. By the time I was 23 years old, I was a single parent with 4 kids and no husband. It was hard raising 4 kids with no education to fall back on. Some nights there was only enough food for the kids to eat. I cried myself to sleep many nights. I worked long and hard making beds and cleaning toilets. We lived in the projects. It was clean and a good environment for my kids at that time. The projects later became very dangerous for my kids, and we moved to a 2-flat. I immersed myself into the world. I entered a dark place in my life. I started smoking cigarettes and marijuana, drinking and gambling. I thought I was really living. God protected me and my kids. I knew of God and His power, but I did not have a relationship with God. I worked hard to provide for my family, and my kids had everything they needed. I loved them unconditionally, and they felt my love. I broke the curse off of my life and my family. I knew God, that He loved me, but I did not have a personal relationship with Him yet. I always had His hand. He always had His hand out on my life and my kids' life. I thought I gave up something in the world. I thought if I gave up something in the world, I would lose myself. When my kids were in high school, I met a coworker that owned a 2-flat. He rented me an apartment. I started selling marijuana and cocaine and using it myself as well. I thought I was hiding the drugs from my kids, but they knew. I exposed my kids to drugs, and I was making money and was able to afford the better things of life. Selling drugs was a convenience and a pleasure. I made sure my kids received a great education and great jobs. I met a wonderful man named Richel. I'll just call him Rich. At work. We started dating in 1985. He loved me and my kids. We became a family. My youngest child was very rebellious. He gave me a lot of trouble because of my lifestyle. He went to prison for drug use because of my bad example. I feel so guilty and blame myself. Rich and I got married and became the parents for both of our kids. I was the mother of his kids because they didn't have a mother figure in their lives. My kids didn't have a great father figure in their lives, and my husband became that to them as well. We bought property together. He was everything in a man I could ever want. I started going to church, and I received Christ in my life in 1996. Things in my life were going great. God really blessed me and my family. My husband also gave his life to Christ, but he didn't attend church very often. In 2002, my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer. We battled that for 2 years. We lost the battle November 16th, 2004. 2 years later, my mother died. I lost my faith in God and things went downhill from there. I went back to the ways of the world. I started smoking, drinking, and gambling. I started going to casino daily. I hit rock bottom. I lost 3 buildings in my home. I had to work at UPS full time to supply the income that I lost when my husband passed away. The one thing I had was a praying family that never gave up on me. I had a sovereign God that loved me unconditionally. I returned to God in 2010. I gave my life back to Christ and served Him only. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2010. God healed my body and restored my life. I got to know God in the fellowship of His suffering and made a decision to do His will. God's love exceeds any love that I've ever received. I have learned that God truly loves me. God has blessed me and my family tremendously. I received a call from my son about his grandson's health. What? I received a call from my son about his grandson's health. Wow. The doctor stated that he would not live through the night. He was 9 months old and he had bleeding in the brain and he had a stroke on his left side. I called the prayer warriors of the church. We went to the hospital daily. Went to the hospital daily and prayed for his recovery. He is now 3 years old. God healed him and made him whole. He's using his left side again. God continues to bless my seed. As he states in the Bible, I have seen God work so many miracles. God is awesome. I have learned how to have a true relationship with my Lord Jesus Christ, the atoned one. I am praying for my kids to receive and love Christ and salvation. And that is by Dorothy. Oh, down here under her story, it says, Dorothy was a strong advocate of using real life stories. This book is provided to you in honor of our dear sister Dorothy, who went to be with Jesus April 5th, 2020. Dorothy is still alive in Christ today. May Dorothy's story continue to help others become alive in Jesus. So, I was just about to mention that she stated that she was diagnosed with cancer in 2010, and it looks like, unfortunately, she did not win that battle. Very heroic of her to be a single mother at 23 years old, raising 4 children. Very heroic. Very, very heroic of her to go on with that. I couldn't even begin to imagine what that'd be like. I can't even fathom. But, hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. As I said, I love reading these stories. These stories are amazing to me. If you guys would like me to continue the series, or you guys have any suggestions where the series should go, obviously, let me know. And yeah, that's about it. Peace.